Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to a new episode of the Artsy Raven with Laura Leffler. So Laura is a writer and veteran of the New York City art world. She currently lives in Colorado with her family. So welcome, Laura.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, now having said this, so what inspired you to write a book?
That's a great question, but I think I always was a writer, ever since I was a little girl, like writing poems and things like that. Um, and then I studied creative writing in undergrad, um, and sort of tried to be a writer for a minute after I graduated from college. And then I felt like everybody was, all the writers were already having book deals and stuff at 22. And I sort of gave up and went back to graduate school for art history. And then, worked in art galleries for most of my professional career. But I always had it in the back of my head, that I would come back to writing. I did write art reviews and that kind of thing, while I was working in art galleries, and some like essays and things like that about art. But I always wanted to write a novel. I mean, from the beginning of time. So I finally did it.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your time working in the art galleries.
Yeah. Um, I think I worked at four galleries over my decade plus in the art world, but I started off at a gallery in Cincinnati, Ohio, which was amazing because it was a smaller place and it was sort of in the provinces, as my boss would say. But I worked for a man who he established his gallery in the early 60s and like knew John Cage and like all these amazing, interesting people, Bucky Fuller and stuff like that. And so I got an amazing arts education from him, working with him. And then that helped me when I moved back to New York. And my first job back in New York City was at Knoedler Gallery, which is infamous now. At the time, it was like, do you know it? You
No, I
smile.
don't. Tell me a bit about this.
Yeah, it was when I moved back to New York, this was in like I want to say 2008. I I started working for Knoedler, and it was like this very posh and prestigious gallery on the Upper East Side. They were selling Rothkos and Milton Avery paintings and like, $1 million paintings. And I was like, it was an amazing place. And then, like about a month after I started working there, my boss was like escorted out, and like there was this big scandal. They'd been selling fake paintings, like forgeries.
Wow.
So they ended up closing. I mean, this gallery was older than the Met, and they ended up closing, and it was a big, big scandal in the art world. Um, but also a fascinating time to like learn about the like sort of dark side of the art world too, the art market and stuff like that, and like how um just like the crazy stuff that goes on. Um and then I worked at a few other galleries in New York, until I stopped in like 2015 and had my twins and then took a
Oh,
break.
oh, I like twins too.
Yeah, I had
So
a
tell
twin.
me a little bit about this new book, like the posters behind you
Yeah.
there.
Oh
Um,
yeah. The posters behind me, I got but it's a novel about, well, it's a thriller set in the New York City art world, surprisingly. Um, but it's about two artists who moved to New York after they graduate college in 2001. And so it takes place over 9/11. One of the artists goes missing, and the other friend is searching for her. It's a dual timeline, so it jumps back in time to their when they first met in art school, and like sort of how they got to this very like this breaking point of their relationship and their lives. So yeah, that's
So why did you decide to place it in that time instead of, I guess, later?
yeah, that's a great question. I think the most obvious reason is because I was in New York at that time, and I was, I just graduated from college myself, and it was sort of a reality check for me. I think that you think you know so much about life when you're 22, and then something like comes out of the blue, and it's like you realize how little you actually know and just how big the world is and how like dangerous it is, how like precarious we all are and the whole like society is. I felt like nobody knew what was going on. So I think I wanted to write about sort of coming of age at that time, specifically. And yeah, I think that there are a lot of parallels in the coming of age and that like sort of unstable environment where you just kind of feel like you don't know what's going on. And then one of the characters in my book also, she has a younger brother that has health issues. And it was like she was always waiting for like the next like bad thing to happen in her family life growing up. So I think that I sort of felt like there was a little bit of a parallel there as well, obviously on a much, much smaller scale. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much why. I think it started with that opening. Writing this book started in that place and sort of developed from there.
Okay. So tell me, you mentioned something about a parallel to your life. Do you want to
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I started writing this after my twins were born. Well, my son was born, and he was born with like a genetic disease, so that like it was I was living in terror, for the first few years of his life. Geez, sorry, my doorbell just rang. Now my dog's barking.
Okay.
I'm just gonna shut my door
It's
so he's
okay.
not
I
barking at
can
me.
edit this part
Okay.
out. It's okay.
Jeez. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
My dog's a crazy, crazy dog. So yeah, my son was born with this a genetic disease, and I think for the first few years of his life, we were sort of walking on eggshells, and just really like everything felt unstable and precarious and tumultuous, and it was like I don't know why, but the first thing that I wanted to write about after that time was 9/11 because it was sort of it felt the same in a way, in a weird way, like the unknowing, the uncertainty, the sort of fear, the realization that you have got to learn about this other thing, like when I was 22, I had no idea about, politics and the world at large. And it was when I started really reading newspapers and paying attention to like what was going on in the world, it was a real big wake up call for me. And I think in the same way, I had to learn about this disease and like how we were going to handle transplant and all this stuff that was like new to me. So
What kind of transplant are you talking about?
he had a kidney transplant in
Wow.
2018, and then he had a dual liver and kidney just
Wow.
in September, this past September 24th.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
been
I
a
hope
while,
he's
but
doing
he's doing
well.
great right now. So I
Okay.
am like beyond thankful. So yeah.
Okay. Now, in the book, you have I mean, you have artists and artists you muse on to create this book. Do you have any artists you want to mention or?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the characters are obviously made up entirely and their art is made up. I think for this book, my art history background sort of comes in two ways. One is that I was able to like talk about their materials and process in a way I think I'm not an artist myself. I mean, I love art, but I can't make what artists do. Like I'm so impressed by it, but I do have a sense of their materials and how they work, especially interviewing artists, being friends with artists. But for this book in particular, the art history is more about like the muses and the models that a lot of like the more famous male, especially artists, have used and sort of misused over time, and what happened to them. Like there are a lot of stories about them in there that I've taken from art history. Very real people like Picasso's muses and some artists like Francesca Woodman, who's a photographer. She did self-portraits, but she also committed suicide when she was very young. And like other people, Edie Sedgwick, I mentioned, sort of like tragic figures in the art world that often were overlooked, that played a part and played a role in the creation of these works that didn't really get any credit.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is also luck too. I mean, you have a lot
Oh,
of
for
really
sure.
great artists, and it's just you never see them. And people are buying forgeries because they look like whatever.
Yes, I know. Totally true. Absolutely.
Now tell me, how after you finish your manuscript, what happened after that?
Um, well, I finished my manuscript like 100 times, but I finished it, and I had an agent before, and I before this one for another book, but I sent it to her and I actually didn't hear back from her. So I decided I'd just go out querying, and I cold queried and found my agent that I have now, Cece Lira, who is amazing. She's actually in Toronto too. But she's amazing. And then we shopped it around. We did a lot of edits on it. Like she helped me. I think for me, like I can write a sentence, a paragraph, no problem, but when it comes to like structure, it's like that part is harder for me. So I think she sort of helped me nail down the structure and everything like that. So we worked on it for a while and then we sent it out. Yeah, and then eventually it was picked up and we sold it to Disney Hyperion Avenue. Um, and yeah, it's been a long, long time since I finished this book. It's been like I've been waiting. All the people in my life are like, it's not out yet? Like, is there a
Yeah,
problem?
I know. Why is it taking so long?
Yeah, like it takes forever. Um, but so yeah, it's finally coming out like at the end of the month, at the end of May. So yeah, super
Okay,
excited.
so are you working on something else now? Like you're gonna do
Yeah.
this again?
Hopefully, that's the goal. I want to keep doing it. And yeah, I am working on something else. I've got another manuscript that hopefully, we will be able to come back and talk about soon enough.
Now, are
But
you still working in the art world? Or are you a full-time writer now?
no, I'm not. I was going to go back after, and then we ended up moving from New York. My kids were all born in New York, three kids, and they were all born in New York. And then we moved to LA briefly, and then here to Denver for my husband's work. And so we've been here. I did take a job at a gallery in Denver very briefly when we first moved here, which was super fun. My kids had all started school by then. Um, but then my son needed his kidney transplant, and that sort of
Yeah.
is a full-time job, like taking care of him and
Yes.
stuff. So I stopped working, and that's actually, um, gave me time to sort of think about going back to writing too, being at home. So, um, yeah, so luckily I am able to just work on my writing at this point. Yeah. Um, yeah.
Now, do you have any tips for anyone trying to finish their manuscript? Because you sound like you're a very busy person.
I am a busy person.
Yes.
Someone asked me, one of my friends here asked me, we went out to lunch the other day, and she was like, "How did you have time to do this?" And I was like, "I stopped doing everything else, like cleaning, no, like doing the dishes, no, like I stopped getting manicures, like all that stuff. Like I had just had to like focus on like what I really wanted to do, which was finishing the manuscript and like letting everything else kind of go and like not be, I mean, I do what I have to do for the kids,
Yeah.
like do the basics, but I don't. I'm not so worried about like the other things that used to gnaw at me. I just try to let them go and focus on what I really want, which is finishing my book. So I think if there's anything you can let go of, that's taking up your time and that you don't really have to do, I think that would be a good way to start. Otherwise, just keep going, just it's hard and you just have to persevere. That's really the only advice I have.
Hi, Laura. You're going to do a reading for us. Now, can you give us a little bit of context and then start reading?
Yeah, I think if it's okay, I'll just read the opening. Um, and so for context, well, I don't know if you need really any context. I mean, the story I told you, I mean, the back is two New York artists' tumultuous friendship gets turned on its head when one of them goes missing and the other may be to blame. Um, and again, it's like two ambitious young artists who are in New York have since, so this is it's basically the opening. So I don't know how much more context I need to do. Your mess was everywhere. Coffee grounds marched like ants across a counter, a carton of milk left out to spoil. There were toast crumbs, empty sweet and low packets, and two dirty mugs near the sink. I picked up one of the mugs, a graduation gift from my little brother, and turned it in my hand. World's best sister. I'd taken so much care when I'd packed it 3 months before, swaddling it in bubble wrap and thick blankets for the U-Haul trip to New York. Now there was a sharp nick in the lip and the handle had cracked off completely. That was the whole problem, wasn't it, Willow? You thought everything was yours and it made you careless. My grip tightened until I felt the mug might go to pieces in my hand. Then I let go. I dropped it into the garbage along with the milk and the rest of your trash and wiped down the counter. I wouldn't let you get to me anymore, especially not on the day that everything between us would change. I allowed myself to imagine it the way I had 100 times before. You crossing 10th Avenue on your way to the gallery, platinum hair glinting in the sun, a slice of stomach peeking between your skirt and top. We had become so accustomed to the city's eyes on us, the ogling and catcalling and sweaty faces, the tongues flicked between split fingers, the scurrilous shouts from passing cars. It meant nothing to us, and because of that, I knew you wouldn't sense the danger in another man and another impotent pair of eyes. But the danger was there, Willow, because this man wasn't just watching, he was waiting. He was holding a knife. I knew that because I paid him to be there. The buzzer rang. I froze, sponge in hand, before making my way to the intercom. Hello? It's me. Milo. I pictured him on the stoop, frayed t-shirt over bony, hunched shoulders, those paint-flecked work boots he always wore. I never thought Milo was handsome, not the way you did, but there was something about him that tugged at me, like the pull towards sleep. I could almost feel his fingertips on my skin, my tiny hairs standing at attention, skin goosebumped. Let me in, he said. I pushed the button to unlock the door, then waited for him to climb the 4 flights of stairs to our apartment. When he got there, his face was crooked. Sweat circled the neck of his shirt. My scalp tingled cold because right away I knew, something had gone wrong. Have you heard from her? He said, boots planted wide on the landing. I glanced back at the little red numbers on the microwave, 9:55 a.m. A half an hour, I thought. We still have 35 minutes. That's when you were supposed to call from the police station and tell me about the man with the knife, how he pulled you into an abandoned warehouse and taken your wallet. Milo knew that. He was the one who'd hired Tyler, who had told him where to wait for you and when. It's not even 10 o'clock, I said. Milo put his palm flat on the door, trying to push past me, but I blocked him. It was a reflex, something deep in my subconscious warning me that he was carrying danger with him, an unpinned grenade. Jesus, Anna. He gripped my shoulders with both hands and guided me backwards. It was like we were dancing until my back thumped against the door. He dropped his hands, brushed past me. Turn on the TV. The screen was the size of a cereal box, but I saw what was happening all the same. The World Trade Center was on fire. Red gashes cut into both buildings, smoke billowing. I looked to the open kitchen window. Nothing but brightness and blue sky. Milo clicked up the volume. Newscasters were talking about the Pentagon, an explosion, maybe a bomb, maybe another plane. The White House was being evacuated, the Capitol building too. Words rolled along the bottom of the screen, indecipherable as runes. This can't be real, I said. I couldn't have slept through something like this. The birds wouldn't be singing. The sky wouldn't be so blue. And then on the screen, a magic trick. A tower turned to smoke. It happened in slow motion, but also fast, and the enormity of it, the sheer scale, crashed over me, filling my ears and muffling every sound except my own thundering heartbeat. The collapse replayed on screen, slower and slower, the building falling straight down through the middle inside itself. A black cloud took shape in its place. How many people did I just watch die? It was impossible, impossible. That building had seemed as permanent as the sun. I found myself sitting on the barewood floor, hands stacked over my mouth. People on TV were running and bleeding and covered in ash, and despite those real people in our new city on that ordinary workday, moving along, not questioning their lives or their jobs or the buildings that held them up, I was thinking only one person, only you. The C train went right under the financial district, but no, it was 10 o'clock. You'd be well past the World Trade Center by then, off the subway entirely, making your way to your position behind Knoedler Gallery's huge front desk, to Tyler and his knife. The footage flapped like a film strip through my mind, his face covered in a bandana, his hand over your mouth, the tip of his blade pressed into your neck. It was all wrong now, absurd. That fallen building had changed everything. Milo. He faced me, eyebrows stretched apart like wings, a million questions twisted through my head, but I couldn't articulate any of them. My hands were in fists against my cheeks, and my voice came out strangled, unrecognizable. What did we do? He blinked. He shook his head. This is terrorists, eh? This has nothing to do with us. On the screen, that enormous churning gray-black cloud. If I could have thought logically, I would have known that Milo was right. There was no way that what we had done, our stupid little prank, could have wreaked so much havoc. This was outside of us, beyond us, bigger than us. But logic wasn't working that morning, and the disaster across the bridge didn't feel like a coincidence. It felt like one of your tricks. Abracadabra, I thought. Poof. Milo grabbed the cordless phone off its charging dock and held it out to me. Call her. I stepped back. You do it. You know she won't talk to me. He wagged the phone. Come on, Anna, please. I grabbed it and dialed your cell. A recorded operator whined in my ear, telling me the number was out of the service area. That wasn't right. That couldn't be right. I dialed again. Milo hovered, watching me, biting the skin on his thumb. The same loud nasal voice in the receiver. Out of the service area. I pulled back, looking at the phone like it might come alive in my hand. It didn't make sense. I dialed again and again and again. It isn't working, I said. It's a weird message. The people on TV were talking about the FAA, the PLO, Flight 11, so many words and letters and numbers I didn't understand. My heart swam inside my chest. My palms grew slick. I wiped them on my robe, the cheap fabric only making me sweatier. Milo snatched back the phone. He dialed and listened and frowned. What the hell is going on? He shifted from foot to foot, biting his thumb and staring at the phone. He was cracking, doubting himself, doubting me. Our plan had been a small thing, a joke, a lark. We wanted to scare you, to mess up your plans, a little revenge for all the shit you'd put us through. Milo thought making you afraid would soften you, which is what he always wanted, for you to be soft enough to mold. But I knew better. You were made of glass, not clay. To be free, we'd have to shatter you completely. Milo flung the phone against the wall. I covered my ears as it bounced off the floor and broke into two pieces, the battery pack hanging by thin red wires. Milo's head was in his hands. I could almost hear his nails scratching his scalp. I could almost feel his fingers tugging through my tangles. Another bulletin, Pennsylvania, missing planes, newscasters saying names I'd never heard before, all of it sounding like fables, like fantasy. Everything was so foreign and far away. I thought of my family back home in Bexley. They were probably watching the same news, huddled around the living room TV, Good Morning America, so rudely cut away to this. I pictured my mother nervously folding laundry, Henry curled on the couch in tears. I picked up the cordless phone, snapped the pieces together, and replaced the battery pack. Another news bulletin. All the city's subways were shut down, the bridges and the airports too. I blinked at the screen, then at the walls around me, your photographs, my paintings, our framed exhibition posters. Everything felt too small, too tight. We were trapped. I pressed the talk button on the phone with a cold, nearly numb finger. There was no dial tone. You broke it, I said. Milo dragged his fingers down his face, pulling his skin until the flesh under his eyes turned inside out. I cannot be here right now. I glanced back at the television, the smoke, the sirens. A minute's passed, maybe 2. It took that long for it to click. This is an emergency. The normal rules do not apply. I needed to call my family, to hear my brother's voice, no matter how much the stupid daytime minutes cost. I ran into my bedroom, snatched my cell phone from my nightstand, and dialed the numbers to the little yellow house in Ohio. Instead of ringing, the phone let out an angry, cranking noise, then went dead. I rushed out to tell Milo, the tumble of words leaving my mouth before I even made it into the living room. My cell's not working either. I don't understand. But the room was empty. Milo was already gone. I didn't know it yet, Willow, but so were you. It's the end of the chapter.
Well, we'll have the link to your book in the notes of the podcast. And thank you for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, it was so fun. Thank you for having me.
For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarrard.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.